Welcome to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but first let's hear from our podcast sponsors. We want to thank Violet Defense for their support of the Educational AD Podcast. Go to violetdefense.com for more information. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products, or if you'd like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of their technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and the experience you need. Once again, go to violetdefense.com for more information. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive. You've heard me say that we have a Sideline Interactive video scoring table in our gym, and it is really a fantastic product. So please check it out. You know, it's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department these days, but Sideline Interactive's video boards and indoor scoring tables can generate $10,000 or more every year, while also creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. Check out what these fantastic products can do for you. We also want to thank Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they are on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They provide a variety of interactive touchscreen boards, along with an extensive library of templates to make it easier than ever to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. For ideas on how to showcase your school's diverse history, along with your proudest moments, visit vitalsignswalloffame.com. Or to learn more and get started with your own digital Wall of Fame tribute, give them a call at 614-981-3589 or email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank Huddle for their support of the podcast. At Huddle, we power sports. More than 180,000 teams, including some of the best in the world, are using Huddle to elevate the performance of their athletes and their teams using video and analytics. Huddle is the complete performance platform. They have online tools, mobile and desktop apps, smart cameras like the Huddle Focus. We've got one of those in our gym, and it is terrific. Of course, there's analytics and a whole lot more. Huddle's built for every level of play, from the club and the youth levels up through high school and college, and even professional teams are using Huddle to help the performance of their athletes. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes, a lot of their parents, and the coaches of the colleges and universities that you're trying to get your kids recruited to. Huddle is here for you. To find out more about how your school can become a Huddle school and all the things that Huddle can do for you, get in touch with their professionals at huddle.com. Remember, Huddle, we power sports. We also want to thank our good friends at Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect some comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack also gives you access to the 95% of the players and parents who really love your program, and it gives them a voice to help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466 or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. We also want to thank Hometown Ticketing, the leading provider of online digital ticketing for schools and colleges. You can learn more at hometownticketing.com. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Dr. Iyhia McMichael. She is currently the girls athletic director and the head softball coach at Emerson High School in McKinney, Texas. Also an adjunct professor of education at LSU. She's got an incredible background. I'm going to let her share that, but she was a two-time All-American at Southeast Conference, Mississippi. She's also competed at the world level, representing the United States. I'm going to let her go into all the details, but we are very, very excited to have Dr. Iyhia McMichael as our guest today. Dr. McMichael, welcome.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, you come very highly recommended, as we talked about. So let's just jump right into it. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school, a little bit of sports background, and the path that's brought you to your present position as a girls AD at Emerson.
Yes. Well, I grew up, born and raised in Nacogdoches, Texas. I come from a sports family. I feel like everyone in our family is a teacher, coach, principal, some sort of leadership position in education. And so I feel like in some ways the path chose me, no matter how far or how hard I tried to run away from it, because my degree was actually in business. So I wanted to be working in some corporate office somewhere. But I feel like I was pulled, and I'm thankful that I was pulled, down the education path. But I played all sports. I played volleyball, basketball, and softball. Softball was the one that I fell in love with. I think partly because I saw a lot more success in it, but as well as the challenging part. I mean, it's just one of those sports where you fail more than you succeed. And I was just determined to try to figure out how to flip that narrative around. And sometimes that worked better than others. But my dad was my coach growing up. He learned how to pitch underhand. He learned how to the rules of the game, because he saw that was the path that I was heading. And it's funny because I just got done watching the King Richard with Serena and Venus, and I was thinking my dad, it was so similar with softball. He had no background in softball, but he taught himself how to do it, and he coached me and my sister as well. So all the way through high school, and took me and my sister both to the state softball tournament. And then I was fortunate enough to be recruited. I was one of the top 5 recruits coming out of the state of Texas. And I did not even know that at the time. We were finished in Colorado. And I will never forget this moment. I was playing with the Katy Cruisers with Kat Osterman. And we had just finished. And I remember seeing this line of coaches at the fence. And I just grabbed my bags and kept walking. And my coach said, those coaches are for you. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so Coach Donna Papa was the very first coach from North Carolina that I remember talking to. And so that was just a really cool experience, because I remember my mom saying, I knew that she was good, but I didn't realize that she was that good. And I was like, thanks, Mom, for that. But anyway, that was just a fun process. And then realizing that I could, play at the next level. And so that choice took me to Mississippi State. And then I had a great career there, and then had the opportunity to play for Team USA, which is, I think still to this day, when I talk about it, I get a little choked up, because it's such an incredible honor to wear those 3 letters across your chest, and to embody something way bigger than yourself. And then had the opportunity to go on to play professionally. And that's kind of when I started recognizing that I wanted to continue to be a part of this game. And that led me to coaching. And that's kind of where I am now, coaching and leading, and wanting to build everyone else around me to continue to fall in love with this sport.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to mention that in my intro, but I missed. I'm glad you brought it up. Talk just a moment about your professional softball playing experience. I just thought that was so cool.
Yes, it was. And it's funny when I talk about it because we grew up blue collar. We didn't grow up to chase accolades or awards or anything like that. That just was not part of what our family was about. So some of the things that I earned, I had no idea were even out there. I didn't realize that that you can, get these awards or the draft or some of the accolades that I received. But to have the phone call from Joy Arietta and tell me that she was going to draft me first round, first pick for the Akron Racers was a phone call that I will never forget. She was so excited about it. And when I talked to my coach at the time, Coach Jay Miller, he told me that's exactly where I needed to be. And I wanted to be a part of a program that was going to continue to push me. And I'm so thankful that that's where my path led me. But that experience for 4 years was so incredible because I remember getting to play and become teammates and now friends with some of the players that I was able to watch on TV, like Natasha Watley, Tariah Flowers, Selena Patterson, Trina Prater, Nicole Trimboli. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but just to be surrounded by such incredibly talented softball players and even better humans, and to play on that platform and to continue to try to encourage and show young players that you can continue to play was 4 years that I will never forget.
Very cool. And again, you were the number one draft pick for the Professional Softball League. Very, very cool. Talk a little bit about your current position and segments. I know you just took the job this year at Emerson, but talk a little bit about that transition from head coach to now athletic director. And I know you're still coaching, but talk about, some of the excitement, maybe some of the challenges of becoming an AD.
Well, I think that the excitement is always there, and then it's something new, something bigger, something more challenging. I'm a person that likes to continue to challenge myself and to surround myself with people that are going to push me. So the transition was fun. And then when the dust settles, you realize that it's real and that you're, governing more people than you had before. But I feel like leadership, no matter where you are, is about people. And I feel like if you can connect with people and be authentic first with who you are and be consistent with who you are and meet people where they are, I think that is the absolute foundation for any leadership position that you can ever hold. And I feel like I've been fortunate enough to talk to leaders in different areas of life outside of sports. And that is the foundation for everything. It's all about relationships. But I think the most important part of relationships is that the leader must be authentic. I think that you have to know who you are so you can show up the same every day.
Wow, really, really cool stuff. We're going to get into that leadership component in just a second. But for our listeners, we're visiting with Dr. Iyhia McMichael. She's the girls athletic director, and the head softball coach at Emerson High School in McKinney, Texas. We'll be right back, but please stay with us. We're going to take a quick break and hear from one of our sponsors. We want to thank Huddle for their support of the Educational AD podcast. At Huddle, we power sports. More than 180,000 teams, including some of the best in the world, are using Huddle to elevate the performance of their teams and their athletes using video and analytics. Huddle's the complete performance platform. They have online tools, mobile and desktop apps, smart cameras like the Huddle Focus. We have a Huddle Focus in our gym, and our volleyball and basketball coaches just love it. Of course, there's analytics and a whole lot more. Huddle's built for every level of play, starting with the club and the youth levels up through high school, college, and even professional teams are using Huddle to improve the performance of their athletes and teams. We're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes, a lot of their parents, and many of the coaches of the college and university teams that you're trying to get your kids recruited to. If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for your program and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Welcome back. We're visiting with Dr. Iyhia McMichael, the girls athletic director and the head softball coach at Emerson High School in McKinney, Texas. Dr. McMichael, we were talking a little bit earlier about the importance of leadership and particularly mentorship. So we always ask our guests, who were some of your mentors that you've had growing up as well as in your career? Maybe family members or coaches or people you've worked with or worked for. The expression I like to use is, I still hear those voices in my head. So whose voice do you still hear?
Oh my goodness, that's a good one. I like that. And I could immediately think of several voices that I hear in my head, but I would have to start first and foremost with my dad. He is where I learned how to be a player's coach. I feel like my nickname was Icebox from the Little Giants because I was always with my dad with football in the locker room, on the bus. And I got to see him, continue to build relationships with his players, also demanding and expecting a lot out of them, but giving them a hug at the end of the day, and seeing how those players responded to my dad as well. So I learned that. And just like his work ethic, learning how to play the game so he can coach the game and be the best that he could be. The other mentors that I have in my head is Patty Gasso. Patty Gasso recruited me in college, and I remember going on my visits, and we just continued to build a relationship from those days on. I worked several camps for her in the summer after I finished, and I just continued to learn, and I would pick her brain and ask her questions all the time. Coach Jay Miller was my coach in college. I get choked up talking about Coach Miller because he was someone who absolutely took me to the next level as a player. He got me in a way that I feel like no one was able to. And he taught me so much about the mental part of the game. I remember him telling me, he called me Rock. He said, Rock, you're fast, but you have to be fast with a purpose. You have to know where you're going. You have to know your angles, and you have to know. And so just learning those ins and outs of the game, I think helped me as a player and now as a coach as well. And so those are the ones that I feel like their voices are in my head all the time, especially during practices.
Very cool. I actually used that run with a purpose as a football coach. So I love that. You and I were talking before we came on about the national organization, the state associations, and you were telling me that you, at this point in your career, you really hadn't become aware of that, and I can certainly relate to that. I was an athletic director and a head football coach for several years in Florida, and then I took a position at another school as just the AD. And it was at that point I became aware of those opportunities. And so with your permission, maybe I can share with you and share with our listeners some of the things about state associations and nationals. Is that okay?
Yes, I would love that.
Okay. Well, we have a national organization. It's called the NIAAA, National Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association. And each state has its representation. In Texas, it's called the Texas High School Athletic Directors Association. You can Google it, or they're on Twitter too. But each state association will offer throughout the year courses from what's called the Leadership Training Institute, LTI, that are just tremendous professional development courses on various aspects of being an athletic director. There's organizational ones, there's administrative things, there's philosophy courses, and there's some laser focused courses on working with the latest apps to help with organization, dealing with challenging personalities. I'm actually teaching 2 courses this year, one of the middle school philosophy courses, and then a brand new course, which is called Partnering with Parents. We're very excited about that. And those courses are offered at our national conference, which is coming up in December. Once again, for our listeners, we're recording this on November 23rd. So the national conference pretty much starts December 10th. It goes for about 5 days, and it's in Denver this year. And then at the state level, state associations will typically offer, let's say, between 5 and maybe 15 different courses at their state conference. For Florida, our state conference is always the first weekend in May, and we try to offer about 10 to 12 courses. Certain courses also allow you as an athletic director to achieve different levels of certification through the national organization, which is the only non-educational institution that is actually accredited, just like colleges and universities and high schools are accredited. So it's pretty powerful stuff. So you and I will talk more when we get done with the broadcast, but for our listeners, go to niaaa.org, and that'll get you to our national organization website. And then in your state, whatever state you're in, you've got a state athletic directors association. Reach out, find out when your state conference is, and get involved at the state and at the national level. So I hope that helped you out a little bit.
Yes, it does. And I'm intrigued with the partner with parents, because that's something that definitely is a topic that definitely needs to be talked about, because those relationships happen all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we were creating that course, it was really kind of about a 2-year process. When we were first looking at names, the NIAAA already had a course called Challenging Personalities. And in our discussion, we wanted to get away from, yes, parents can be a challenge, but let's be proactive. Let's figure out a way that we can partner with them. We'll set up the parameters. Okay, this is our job. Now this is your job as a parent, and create this partnering relationship rather than an adversarial relationship. So we're really excited. We think we've got a great course, and hopefully a lot of you will sign up to take that in December. Okay. Once again, we're visiting with Dr. Iyhia McMichael. She is the girls athletic director and the head softball coach at Emerson High School in the Frisco Independent School District in McKinney, Texas. We're going to be back with some more, but let's take another break and hear from one of our sponsors. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive. You've heard me share that we have a Sideline Interactive video scoring table in our gym, and it is fantastic. You really need to check these folks out. It's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department these days, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every single year, while also creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call them at 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com and find out exactly what these fantastic products can do for you. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. Welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast. Dr. McMichael, one of the things we try to do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you do or have done at your schools? Because I know you just started there at Emerson, but what are some things that you've done that you're particularly proud of, that when you step back and take a look at it, you could say, boy, we really do a great job with this? Do you have anything you can share with us?
Yes. And I like talking about this because I had to go through the hard stuff to kind of get an idea of like what needs to be done. At my previous school, there was no real blueprint as far as how to do this whole leadership thing. And I knew I wanted the challenge. And so I was tasked with changing a culture of an entire girls athletic program and instilling a structure and a discipline and a mindset of just being a champion. And so And that was hard. It was a lot harder than I thought or a lot harder going into than I thought it was going to be. And so one of the things that I feel like I'm most proud of is I think that it was about year 3, and I am always someone who's willing to reach out and to learn. But I think that we all got together as a coaching staff, and it started with me first getting really clear. I spoke on it earlier about like who I am as a leader. I think self-reflection is huge. So when I became clear on like what my vision was for our program, then I was able to clearly articulate that to the rest of the coaches. And then it provided a roadmap. So I presented, this is where we want to be. This is what it's going to take. Now let's figure out how we can all help to get to this goal. And that became really clear, and everyone was on board with that. And so one of the things that we did, it took hours, is that we got all of our coaches together, junior high through high school, and synchronized everything. We synchronized our vocabulary. We synchronized our stretches, the names of the stretches. We talked about what is our strengths and weaknesses per sport in the junior high as well as high school. And let's get really clear on what they are. And let's get really clear on some goals that we can set for them. And then let's come back monthly and let's see where we are. And that was groundbreaking for us because it constantly helped us remember where we're going, even in those days where as coaches, we're like, we're just spinning our wheels and we're not going anywhere. And then it also helped us get clear on bringing in different things. Like we always look to say, hey, how can we bring in different things? But just because it was new didn't mean that it fit our model. So that helped as well. And so that helped us kind of not spend a lot of time on things that didn't fit us because we were a smaller school. I think that that's important too. Like bigger schools have a different model as well as like what your community needs are. And so, and then each coach wrote a mission statement, because I think that's different than a goal, because I think your mission is internal. So like, what do you want to do at the end of your career? What can you be proud of? And then let's use those goals to help you get there. And so we kind of talked about those like during our meetings as well. And I feel like that was foundational. I felt myself lighter as a leader and better able to help lead the other coaches as well. And then we constantly knew where we were going. And we saw the fruits of that in all of our sports. Our volleyball team made playoffs for the first time in a decade. Our cross country team as a team made it to state, our basketball, and we just saw success because we were able to all be on one accord. So that was something that I'm going to continue to take with me wherever I go.
Well, you brought up so many great components of that. The collaborative effort, sitting down with all your coaches, the individual, goal setting and mission setting, the follow-up and the discussions, not just saying, okay, I want you to do this and then never revisiting it again. Really, really cool stuff. We're going to do this at the end, but if one of our listeners wants to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Yes, I'm on Twitter, and it's at iyhia Mac, iyhia MAC. I'm on Twitter, and I check that regularly. I'm also on Facebook as well, and then they can email me at iyhiamac@gmail.com. So I'm always available.
All right. Again, appreciate you sharing that. We are with Dr. iyhia McMichael. We're going to be back with some more wisdom, but let's take another quick break. We want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. They are on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They provide a variety of interactive touchscreen video boards, along with an extensive library of templates to make it easier than ever to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. For ideas on how to showcase your school's diverse history, along with your proudest moments, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com or learn more and get started with your own digital Wall of Fame tribute. Give them a call at 614-981-3589 or email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. We're back with Dr. iyhia McMichael, Athletic Director at Emerson High School in McKinney, Texas. Coach, one of the questions we've been asking our ADs recently has to do with finding a balance. So I'm curious, how would you have an athletic director or a head coach find a balance between coaching kids to be tough? The extreme I use is, that old cliche, come on, you got to be tough, you got to suck it up, while also being sensitive to and aware of the very real social emotional challenges that a Generation Z kid is experiencing. Do you have any advice for us?
Yes, this is something that I learned and honestly, I'm still learning because I come from that generation where you just suck it up. But I think what has been the best practice for me is I define everything. Allow the girls to have a definition of what it means. And then I give a definition of what it means. And then we meet in the middle. I no longer leave anything to chance. So that way we're on the same page. So when we're talking about tough, like their understanding of tough and my understanding of tough are the same. And so I think that helps that they have a say in that. But defining a vocabulary and having a shared definition of what those words mean, grit, toughness, mentally strong, those are shared definitions that I have conversations with our athletes about. One of the other things that I have done is last year I talked about like defining the culture is my best friend also happened to be the counselor. And so I went to this national NFCA convention with college coaches and high school coaches. And the topic that all coaches talked about was mental strain with athletes and what they do to help them. And I knew that we did not have the resources to hire sports psychologists, but I figured that with our counselor that she can come in and do some training with our kids just mentally to give them or allow them to have some kind of release. And that was groundbreaking for our culture. She came in once a week and I left the room because I feel like they are more vulnerable when I'm not in the room. And she did not share with me what they talked about. It was a safe space for them. If there was something that I needed to know that was pertaining to an athlete that would help me help them on the field, then she would let me know. But that allowed them a safe space and let them know that it's okay to be anxious. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to have the thoughts that athletes have, and they don't have to suppress them. Let's just figure out tools that we could use to make us better in the moment, in the pressure situations. And so that has been great for me and to allow them. And I'm doing the same here. So we have our counselor come in and we have a lot more resources here. So I'm thankful for that. But she comes in, and what I did this time was I had the girls fill out a form and I had several questions on there, definitions. And then I compiled a list of what I felt like were our stressors. And then I presented that to our counselor. And then she comes in and talks about those with our athletes. And then we use that to help them on the field. So again, just having a shared mindset of like what my expectation is and like what their expectation is. And then I always feel like when they're starting to regurgitate the information back to you, like, Coach Mac, I know I need to be tougher there. Then we know that there's growth that's happening. And then I don't have to be the barker. Then they start policing themselves. And then the accountability is on them.
That is just so spot on. And it's so simple, but I don't know how many of us as leaders do that. You talked about, making sure that the definitions are in alignment. I mean, just very, very cool stuff. Hey, thanks so much for sharing that. Okay. We're with Dr. iyhia McMichael, athletic director and head softball coach and pretty darn good athlete back in the day. We're going to find out what Dr. McMichael is going to put in her athletic director's toolbox, sponsored by Athletic Surveys, when we come back. So please stay with us, and we'll be right back with the AD Toolbox segment. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack for sponsoring the Athletic Director's Toolbox segment of our podcast. If you've never done an online survey of your parents or your athletes, you really need to check these folks out because the information they can help provide is fantastic. Athletic surveys by LifeTrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your athletic program. Athletic surveys by LifeTrack also gives you access to that 95% of the players and the parents who really love your program. And it gives them a voice to help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. All right, we're back with Dr. Iyhia McMichael. Doctor, this is the time where, again, we got to put you on the spot a little bit. You know, you're certainly an experienced athletic director and know your way around the world of athletics. Right now, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in Dr. Iyhia McMichael's athletic director toolbox?
I think self-reflection has to be in there. You have to constantly check yourself and know who you are. I've said that before, and I'll say it again over and over again. I think that has to be really clear. And I use the example of, I remember I talked about Patty Gasso, talked about the late, great Pat Summitt, and talked about other just coaches that I admire. And one of the things that I always have been told that if you really want to know how a coach is, go watch them at practice because that's who they are. And that's something I have done. Even still, I go to basketball practice. It doesn't matter. I like to see how coaches interact, how they handle their players. So I think that, but you have to make sure that what you're taking, because we all take bits and pieces of other coaches, what we learn, and make it authentic to who you are. I think that is key. Because when you're trying to be someone else, then it makes it hard for you to follow. The other thing I think is organization. And I think that you have to be organized with what works for you. I have my cell phone with me all the time. Everyone knows that I'm available. I think that reasonable amount of time and answering questions and being available for your coaches is really, really important. I learned that from one of my mentors, Whitney Keeling, that I was with at my last school. He was always available. It didn't matter for any questions that needed to be asked. So I think that that's also important. And then I also think that you have to have a network of people around you. No leader leads by themselves. So you have to have a pool of people that you can call on for things that come up, that you want to make sure that you're doing it right. Because if you are building a brand new culture, program, whatever you're doing, it's very important for you to think about all the things that it could possibly affect. So if you're going to put a rule in place, like I try to think about, or challenge coaches to think about, like, what would be some of the pushback on that? And how would you be able to address that? Are you going to be able to be consistent with that, even if it's a star player? Like, let's think about all the pieces of the puzzle and make sure we think it out before we put a rule set in stone. So I think that words are very important. And when you bounce those off of other people, then they'll bring in different things that maybe you didn't think about before. So I think those are the top 3 that I would challenge other leaders to think about, is being self-reflection, organization, and then having a network of people.
Very cool stuff. I know you won't be surprised when I tell you that those are all in our list of the top tools for success in the first edition of the Educational AD Athletic Directors Toolbox book. And your tool suggestions will be going in that second edition. So thanks for sharing. Okay?
Thank you.
We mentioned this earlier, but I want to do it again. If one of our listeners wants to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, and I really encourage you to do so, you've got a great resource here talking about networking. What's the best way that our listeners can get a hold of you?
Twitter at iyhia Mac, iyhia MAC, or you can email me at iyhiamac@gmail.com.
Okay, very cool stuff. Dr. Iyhia McMichael, Athletic Director at Emerson High School. Thanks so much for being on the podcast today, and all the best moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of these interviews are uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you joining us today. Come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD. As always, we want to thank our good friends at Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Learn more at hometownticketing.com and check us out for What's Up with Upchurch. Jessica Upchurch from Hometown Ticketing shares best practices for hometown ticketing users every other Wednesday on the Educational AD Podcast. Thanks again.